Hello, I'm Kaiser and welcome to Moose Reads. Before I get started, I want to say that the opinions that I give here are my own opinions. They are extremely subjective. If I dislike a book, it is not a reflection on the author, and it is not a reflection on people who do like it. Different people have different tastes, and that's okay. Today, I will be reviewing The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding by Alexandra Bracken, as well as The Last Life of Prince Alastor, its sequel. This is a duology. I read both books. My criticisms span across both of them, so they go in the same video. They are middle-grade paranormal fantasy novels. The description for The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding says, Prosper Redding is the only unexceptional member of his very successful family. That is, until he discovers a demon living inside him. Turns out Prosper's great-great-great-great-great-something grandfather made and then broke a contract with a malefactor, a demon who exchanges fortune for eternal servitude. Now Alastor the malefactor has reawakened and is intent on destroying the Redding fortune, unless they can kill him in the body he inhabits, which... Oh wait, that's Prosper! And why is his grandmother coming at him with a silver blade? In danger from both the demon trying to take over his soul and the family that would rather protect their fortune than their own kin, Prosper narrowly escapes with the help of his long-lost uncle Barnabas and Barnabas's daughter Nell, a witch in training. According to Barnabas and Nell, they have only days to break the family curse and find a way to banish Alastor back to the demon realm. Until then, Prosper has to deal with Alastor's vengeful mutterings inside his head, not to mention his nasty habit of snacking on spiders. And every night, Alastor's control over his body grows stronger. As the deadline to the curse draws nearer, Prosper and Nell realize there's more at stake than just the Redding family fortune, that there might be something else out there, something worse than Alastor, that could destroy the balance between the human and demon realms and change the world as they know it forever. I didn't really care for this book. It was okay while I was reading it, but I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars. There were a lot of issues in the book. Several of those issues are spoilers, but I'll try to give some idea of them without giving anything away. First and foremost, Prosper isn't a very good protagonist. He has very little agency in this book, and what he does do doesn't actually impact the overall plot in the slightest. At least once, he starts trying to do something for the plot, and then immediately forgets about it. I'm not saying this can never work, but I didn't feel like it worked here. Second, and this was the thing that bothered me the most and that I noticed first, at the end of this book there is a twist that recontextualizes the beginning in a way that makes no sense, and therefore negatively impacts the entire story. There were also several things over the course of this book that felt like they didn't have enough weight, lacked clarity, or just weren't set up well enough for the payoff Bracken wanted. This, in particular, is a problem that just got worse in the second book. Alastor, the demon, was running an enemy in the shadows plotline, where the answer wasn't just painfully obvious to the reader, it should have been easily discovered by the characters as well. Of course, if the characters figured it out too soon, we don't get the big reveal, so they took very few steps to discover the enemy and ignored blatant clues that should have given it away. Also, Alastor's character came off as very inconsistent. Sometimes he would seem somewhat soft, caring about family and longing for friends, but more often, he was just a manipulative asshole. This is true across both books, but it really becomes a problem in Book 2. Speaking of Book 2, the non-spoiler thoughts there are basically the same. We get the added bonus of most of the important action coming from characters we barely know and do not care about. It was bad. It made the first book worse by association. I gave it 2 stars. I want to be clear that my problems with these books aren't because I'm an adult and this is middle grade. Certainly there are aspects of the story that I didn't like that are more likely to appeal to young readers, but I can generally recognize them and acknowledge that they weren't made for me, and that's fine. But I have read middle grade in the past that I've enjoyed despite these kinds of elements. I read one in August. I thought it was great. Anyway, those are the non-spoiler thoughts. To be clear, what follows will be complete spoilers for these books. I will be talking about the details of both endings. If you don't want to hear any spoilers for either of these books, now is the time to close the video. For everyone else, let's get specific. So, I said Prosper doesn't really do anything, and what he does do doesn't matter. He does take 2 actions in the first book that relate to the main plot, though. First, in the opening scene, his grandmother is trying to prevent him from speaking with his father. I'll talk more about this later. And Prosper sneaks into his study to get on the phone. Unfortunately, the result of having this conversation is pretty much exactly what it would have been without the conversation. It doesn't matter. Second, he gets a hint that the true names of demons might be important, and of course, he's dealing with a demon in his head. So during a free period at school, he attempts to do research. A small nitpick here, he's trying to look up information on witches and demons, and the safe search is blocking basically everything. In Salem. I feel like half of all reports in Salem probably involve witches somewhere down the road, so it seems silly that this school filters that information. But whatever, it's been decades since I was in school, maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, Prosper is mostly thwarted. He does, however, decide to look up information on true names, which he then prints out and forgets about. He puts it in his backpack, and it is never mentioned again. And that's the most he tries to do regarding his own imminent death. Great character. But he does take actions toward a subplot. His cousin, Nell, wants to be the lead in the school play. Because the lead is male, she isn't allowed to audition. Prosper, wanting to make her happy, takes several actions to convince the drama teacher to let her audition anyway. And she gets the part! Yay! But despite this being where the bulk of Prosper's efforts are focused, the play doesn't actually happen. The climax of the book gets in the way. So all of his effort is a complete waste of time. So let's talk about the climax. Like I said, there's a twist that recontextualizes the beginning of the book that just ruins so much. And they'll make it worse again at the end of the second book, but by then it doesn't really matter. At the beginning of the book, Prosper and his sister Prue go to attend a family gathering at their grandmother's mansion. Prosper thinks there are a lot more relatives than normal, and then everyone is acting a bit odd. Then his father calls trying to get a hold of him, and he sneaks into the study for a pointless conversation. His father tells him to take his sister and get out of the house immediately. He indicates that Prosper's grandmother has been trying to do something for a while that he has been preventing, and that she is taking the opportunity of his parents being out of town to finally do it. Prosper makes a vague attempt to get Prue and run, but it is a very vague attempt, and he fails completely. The 2 children are brought down to the basement, where Prue is asked to read a book that she says has no words, but Prosper can read just fine. This indicates Prosper is playing host to the demon Alastor. Alastor bargained with Prosper's ancestor on a wedding, and then was betrayed and nearly killed. He narrowly escaped, and the family knew he would eventually return. So they've been checking the kids because he'll fully manifest when his host turns 13. Prosper is turning 13 in a matter of weeks. If Alastor manifests, he will destroy the fortunes of the Bracken family and almost certainly kill Prosper. All bad things. Learning that Prosper is the one who holds the demon, something his grandmother seems pleased by, she draws a silver blade and cuts his arm. A fire has started for reasons, and Prosper is fighting to escape, but he can't get free. Then Uncle Barnabas comes to the rescue, dragging Prosper out of the house and to safety. In Salem, he and Nell are preparing a spell to get rid of Alastor once and for all without harming Prosper at the request of his father, Barnabas's brother. All of that makes perfect sense. In the end, we find out Barnabas isn't actually Barnabas. He's really Henry Belgrave, the last descendant of a rival family whose fortunes were ruined by the contract with Alastor, and who Honor then contracted with him to destroy. The spell he's been preparing will actually trap Alastor in Prosper permanently and allow the big bad to steal his power. Also, his grandmother was never going to kill him. Actually, she was just going to make a cut to each of his limbs so that Alastor couldn't control his body, then they would do a spell to kill Alastor without harming Prosper. Okay, wait. If Granny wasn't going to kill him, why didn't his dad want this to happen? Alastor will hurt the family in general, and Prosper specifically, if he escapes. Shouldn't a loving father want to protect his son from this impending doom? And if the plan was never to kill Prosper, why didn't anyone just, tell him what was going on? Well, because we can't have the big twist, or really the plot, if Prosper doesn't think his family wants to kill him. So it has to seem like his family wants to kill him. even if that makes no sense whatsoever. It's stupid. It makes every single Redding seem like a complete moron. Then there's the other big reveal. For context, Alastor has 4 brothers and a sister. He didn't get along with his brothers, but he loves his sister Pyrrha. The last time he saw her, she was weak and couldn't manifest an animal form that would let her be seen by humans, so his brother Boone locked her in a tower. Alastor allowed this because he thought Boone would otherwise try to kill her, but he keeps mentioning that he wonders if she's okay and if she ever manifested her animal form. Alastor knows that for Honor to do the spell meant to kill him, he would have to know his true name. He deduces that he had to have gotten this information from one of Alastor's siblings, so Alastor is trying to figure out which sibling is his enemy. His immediate assertion is that it must be one of his brothers. He tries to find out which one of them it is by asking a servant he acquires to tell him who is ruling the demon realm, but whoever it is has cursed any demons leaving the realm to be unable to speak the name. Personally, I thought the obvious solution was to just ask the servant to list his siblings, and whichever one he couldn't name was the problem, but I will give Alastor the benefit of the doubt that not everyone would necessarily think that. Eventually, Nell and Prosper are discussing something with Alastor. Prosper can speak to him at any time, but Nell can't, so they're using a spell to make him appear in a mirror. He appears in his animal form. The servant, a demon called a hob, comments that Alastor's demon form is much better than that of his siblings. He then proceeds to list the animal forms of those siblings, and he lists 5 animals. Seems like Alastor should have latched onto this immediately, but he doesn't even notice. In the same vein, for a while now, Prosper has been dreaming about an ominous panther that is trying to tell him something. At this point in the book, we've established that demons can visit humans in their dreams. We may well have also established that the panther is trying to tell Prosper Alastor's true name, though I can't remember for sure. Either way, I would have expected Prosper to take note of the hob saying one of the siblings takes the form of a feline. But of course, the plot requires everyone to remain ignorant, so neither one of them pays attention at all. Obviously, it's Pyrrha. She's made a bargain with Henry and Nell in exchange for them doing the spell to trap Alastor. Nell didn't realize they were killing Prosper, though, so she does a heel-face turn. And call me crazy, but I like my heel-face turns to have a little weight behind them. Nell's doesn't. We only just learned that she's a heel at all, and then suddenly she's not anymore. Nell is the place where I felt the book lacked clarity. We learn earlier that her mother died. I think she got sick, but even when I was reading it, that didn't feel certain. Also, she was a witch, was in a coven, and had a girlfriend who was also in that coven. When Nell's mother died, because they weren't married, rather than staying with the girlfriend, Missy, she was forced to live with her father, who she had never met. Nell is upset with Missy. She claims that Missy didn't fight for her mother and didn't fight for her. What exactly she expected Missy to do is unclear. At any rate, she was going along with Pyrrha and Barnabas because Pyrrha promised to bring her mother back. She was lying, but how could Nell have known not to trust a demon? Somewhere in the climax, Prue showed up, so Pyrrha kidnaps her and takes her to the demon realm. Prosper finally makes a contract with Alastor, something he's been angling for all along, to help him find Prue and get both of them home safely. Thus begins Book 2. I found Book 2 immediately jarring. Prosper starts talking about the new Prosper, who theoretically acts instead of hesitating, but there's not really anything to have caused this catalyst. Sure, his sister was kidnapped, but that just means he would want to act, not that he'd suddenly feel more capable of doing so. So where did new Prosper come from? I don't know. Mostly, what new Prosper does is be a total jackass. Nearly everything that Prosper does in this book ranges from morally questionable to outright cruel. So a protagonist who started out useless is now useless and a jerk. Great. I shouldn't say that. Prosper does take a much more active role in this book. I still don't think he accomplishes much, but he does try a lot more. I'll go over the morally questionable actions real quick. 3 of them tie into larger complaints I had with this book. So, first, they're in a market to see an information broker. They are trying to find out where Prue is being held. The information broker extracts a letter of Alastor's true name in exchange for the info, and then gives them information that is virtually useless, but technically an answer. Prosper decides to try again with a more specific question, but the only thing he has to bargain with is one of Alastor's secrets. Personally, I don't care all that much if he betrays Alastor, but the book is pretending that they're friends, so it makes this kind of scummy. Then, when the information broker is distracted, he steals the page of notes on Alastor's true name. Again, I don't actually care if he robs a demon, but he is stealing, so we're supposed to question it. Later, they need to sneak into a mansion to rescue some familiars that have been stolen and will be eaten, and also to kidnap the Hob from the first book, so he can show them the secret entrance to where Prue is being held. He betrayed them in the first book, so they're happy for a chance to get back at him. But they're relying on the help of a ghost to help them sneak in. The ghost is enslaved to the house. He says he will help them sneak in if Nell will break his chains and let him go free. Alastor points out that Nell doesn't have enough magic left to do that. Prosper knows this and still makes the promise. Through some shenanigans which rely heavily on an elf that we've barely met, they end up destroying the house, rescue the familiars, and capture the Hob. They try to force the Hob to tell them the secret way in, but the Hob tells them that it's cursed so that it cannot be spoken, only shown. He is very clearly terrified of the secret entrance. Members of his family were sent to clean and were never seen again. So Prosper promises that if he shows them the way, they'll let him go. The Hob shows them the way, and then Prosper throws him in. Then, in the tunnel, everyone is going to be eaten by murderous sewer selkies. Prosper sees one going for the Hob and decides to do nothing. Nell, however, saves him. They are then rescued by the ghost from earlier. Because the house was destroyed, he is free, but he realized they were lying, and now he tells them they owe him a debt that he will name later. It's worth noting that as soon as they get into the prison, the ghost is gone again. He has barely been in this book, but he will come back. There may have been a few more scummy actions, but those are the ones I remember. I thought we were heading for a plotline where having Alastor inside of him was corrupting Prosper, and that's why he was being an asshole. To Bracken's credit, that is not where it was going. Prosper just is an asshole now. Now we're getting to we'll call it a twist, I guess. So I need to pause and discuss one of my overarching gripes. That is, the true name plotline. So I said that early in the first book, Prosper gets a hint that true names might be important. This comes from him trying to read a book in another language. Alastor can read it and tells him it's a list of demons' true names. Prosper reads a couple of the names and Alastor seems uncomfortable. So I spent a while wondering if Alastor's name was in the book. Was it? Who knows? Prosper is useless and never looks at the book again. I also said he prints out research, which again he never looked at. Pyrrha has been coming to him in dreams, trying to use Alastor's true name to awaken him, but Prosper heard it wrong. Actually, he remembers it wrong, because here at the twist, he's going to remember. Possibly, anyway. Things got a bit unclear here. Also, he stole the page from the broker. Did he do anything with it? No. But you can see that this has been a persistent plot point. He has been actively trying to uncover Alastor's true name throughout both books. Because if he can learn Alastor's true name, he can use it to force Alastor to break his contract and the contract Nell made with Pyrrha. I don't remember why Alastor can break Nell's contract, he just can. So we get to the twist. I'll discuss more about that in a minute, but the salient part right now is that the humans need to escape back to the human realm. They create a mirror that they can travel through, but they need Alastor to open the portal. He refuses. But Prosper has finally discovered his true name. How? It was carved into the floor. He didn't have to work for it, didn't have to figure it out, it was just written on the floor. All that setup, worthless payoff. But we're not done with the setup and payoff problems of this particular plot. As I said, Prosper knows Alastor's true name, and he's going to use it to force Alastor to open the portal. Alastor makes some comment about how it's mean to force him, or something to that effect, and Prosper decides not to use it. He doesn't want to be asshole Prosper, and this is a step too far. Look, I don't like the idea of forcing someone to do something against their will. I will even include demons in this one. It is morally reprehensible no matter who you're doing it to. So I'm fully on board with this decision. But they are suddenly framing it in a moral light, and it comes out of nowhere. Prosper has been seeking Alastor's true name, badly, for 2 books. Not once has he even considered whether there were moral implications to that. But now it is the crux of his character arc. This is immoral, and he isn't going to do it. Right, so let's take a step back and discuss the twist itself. Throughout the book, the demon realm is being consumed by nothingness. Pyrrha has gathered all the magic of the realm to create a key, and she only needs Alastor's power to complete it. Somewhere in the first book, they mentioned, once, that there are 4 realms. The human realm, the demon realm, what I think is a ghost realm where humans go when they die, which also makes no sense, but I'll let it slide, and the realm of the ancients. The ancients are basically gods, and they created all the realms, but then they sealed themselves in their own realm and haven't been seen for ages. Pyrrha intends to use her key to break into the realm of the ancients and take over. This is where we get the answer to the question that made me read this book in the first place. I thought it was going to turn out that Alastor and the other demons were the ancients. They just forgot or something. I wanted to know if I was right, so I read this terrible book. I was not right. Actually, the elves are the ancients. We learn this from the elf we spent very little time getting to know. She tells Pyrrha that the elves are the ancients, and there is no realm of the ancients because the elves used to live in the demon realm, but the demons chased them out. So Pyrrha's plan won't work. This is a major development that sends the plot careening onto a new course, and it is revealed by a character so inconsequential that I can't remember her name. Whatever, here we are. So Pyrrha pivots. She can't take over the realm of the ancients, she'll take over the human realm instead. So the humans need to get home, and Alastor refuses. He also wants to save his people. He hasn't given 2 shits about them at any point prior to this, but now he cares. Prosper convinces him to open the portal anyway, because they have a contract and it's part of the deal. They get back to the human realm in Prosper's house, no less. But Alastor then refuses to close the portal. Demons come streaming through. The humans run into town to do nothing. Then Prosper slips away to return to the portal and make a heroic sacrifice. But his grandmother is there waiting for him. She's planning to do something, I forget what exactly, to protect the family, but that will leave the other townsfolk fucked. Prosper gives an impassioned speech about caring about the people. Then Granny capitulates. Turns out she's not actually evil, as Prosper thought. Instead, she's just bad at showing affection. Anyway, Granny is part of a coven of witches that we have kind of been name-dropping here and there in the book, but have never actually met. We definitely have 0 investment in them as characters. They are going to keep the demons in the local town so that nobody else gets hurt. One of them takes Prosper to go round up the townspeople to take them to Granny's mansion, because it is protected against them via Alastor's contract with honor. There's a series of shenanigans, I'll discuss that in a moment, but the important bit is that the elves, plural, show up to solve the plot for us. Also, that random ghost from earlier. See, the ghost is going to take in the power of the key to then rebuild the demon realm. The elves will transfer this power to him and also go to the demon realm to help rebuild. I should note, they are less powerful now, for reasons, so they can't just fix it themselves or make a new realm. The ghost might, explode if he takes all that power into him, so the ghosts of the Redding family also pop in to spread the load. Thus, the demons, elves, and ghosts all peace out. This is pretty much the end of the book. The entire thing is solved by characters we've either barely seen or have not seen at all. You'll notice our protagonist is not solving the problem in any way. He doesn't even contribute. Alastor does, and he's in the title for this one, so your mileage may vary. But let's go over Alastor. So, I mentioned earlier that when Prosper gives away one of Alastor's secrets to the information broker, it is framed as morally questionable because we're pretending he and Alastor are friends. The friendship plotline is something I absolutely despised about this book, and the ending really drives it home. If you haven't read the book, Prosper and Alastor aren't friends. Alastor was only ever nice to Prosper to try to convince him to make a contract so that he could escape his body and destroy him sooner. Not very friendly. Prosper was maybe a little bit more friendly, but only a little. Mostly they sniped at, ignored, and worked against each other. But the climax of this book involves Prosper getting stabbed and Alastor deciding to, once again, betray his sister and his people to use some of his sparse power to save Prosper's life. Because they're friends. For context, recall that within the last 24 hours, Alastor attempted to strand Prosper in the demon realm where Pyrrha would have killed him, and then refused to close the portal so that the demons could invade the human realm and kill or enslave the humans, Prosper included. He also, just before the climax, decided to break the contract with Honor so that the mansion where Prosper and the townsfolk were sheltering would no longer be protected. He quite literally just attempted to get Prosper killed repeatedly, but now he doesn't want him to die. Then Alastor offers to sacrifice his power to finish the key, even though it will kill him, because if Pyrrha does it, then she can't be queen anymore, and he's decided that she's best suited to lead their people. Here we get the final payoff for the true name plot, when Prosper uses it to call him back from death. You know, because they're friends. It's ridiculous and annoying and terribly inconsistent. I'm not sure if I've ever read a conclusion that I felt so completely failed its story before. Last thing I'll complain about before wrapping this up. This one is a much smaller nitpick. I really hated the way the contracts worked in these books. Honor initially makes a contract for his own soul in order to keep the townspeople from dying. They were suffering a harsh winter and it was going very badly. Then, later, he's having problems with the Belgraves sabotaging his family, and Alastor offers to make a second contract. This contract will make every attempt the Belgraves make against the Reddings result in amplifying the Reddings' fortunes. The price? Honor's wife and children will also have to serve in the demon realm for however long Alastor likes. And then the third bargain Honor makes is to wipe out the entire Belgrave family, for which Alastor extracts the souls of all his descendants for eternity. I have several problems with this being feasible. First of all, Alastor did not wipe out the Belgraves, so none of the descendants should be waiting for him to collect and enslave them. They are, that's why they're there for the climax. But also, it pisses me off that Honor can bargain away other people's souls. What kind of patriarchal bullshit enables him to magically give away things that absolutely do not belong to him? I realize the idea is that he owns his wife and children, and therefore their descendants by proxy, because that's the way they thought back in the day, but we're also being asked to believe either that the cosmic forces that govern the magic agree with this, thus making it essentially a universal truth, or that you can just bargain away anybody's soul that you want, and Honor was too stupid to offer up his enemies instead. I'm pretty sure it's meant to be that first one, and I don't think Bracken really thought through the implications when she wrote it, because it was necessary for the plot. But the implications are truly rancid, and I hate it. Anyway, that's the Prosper Redding duology. It isn't good, it isn't well written, I do not recommend reading this. You want a good middle grade with demons? Read Grounded for All Eternity by Darcy Marks. It's got very different vibes, but there's also a fair amount of overlap. If you liked this video, I hope you'll check out more in the future. Thanks for watching this one. Bye!